Just letting you guys know that today's video involves death of a character, death of a family, that sort of thing, because I'm talking about my personal characters. So if you are sensitive to those themes, this might not be the video for you. Consider this your warning. If this doesn't bother you, then enjoy the video, and if not, I'll see you guys next time. Hey everyone, it's Technicolor Dust. Today I'm working on reference sheets for two of my characters. Some of you guys have probably seen them if you've watched some of my other videos, since they both appear in my pork soda animation meme. The girl I'm working on right now appears much later in the video, and the character I'm working on next was the focus of that video. I've made some minor modifications to them since then, which is why I'm finally sitting down and making a reference sheet. So, as you guys can see, I'm sketching out her main designs. I drew the original base in my sketchbook and then I modified it in Photoshop to my liking. There are many days where I want to get off my computer and just draw with a pencil and paper, especially when the majority of my homework at college consists of digital artwork. I will say though, I definitely miss the selection and scale tools in Photoshop when I do draw my sketchbook. It makes fixing my proportions way easier. So, if any of you guys noticed, I'm not doing a full turnaround drawing, and instead I'm just drawing little sketches of different views of her head and hand. This is because I really don't think a full turnaround for her is necessary since her cape covers most of her back, and this is a reference sheet more for me than a full media production. Everybody's different though. I know people who have reference sheets that are just the character and the colors, and then other people whose reference sheets take up 3 pages just for one character. I guess I should talk about my character since she is the focus of the sheet. So, this girl is Tabitha Baines. I chose the name Tabitha since supposedly Tabitha was a woman that was raised from the dead by St. Peter. Tabitha is also the name of a child witch on the old TV show Bewitched. Her last name, Baines, means bones, so I thought it would fit her magic well. She is 19 years old and her sexuality is pansexual. She is a witch, specifically a necromancer or a witch of the dead. She doesn't really summon zombies or skeletons or anything like that since she's relatively untrained. In this world, necromancy is a controversial type of magic and no one around her could really train her. However, she is much more adept at communicating with and summoning spirits than any other mage. She was rather sheltered growing up, so her social skills leave something to be desired. Her mother tried her best to train her, but was scared of what the rest of the world would think of Tabitha. Tabitha did, however, still go to high school with normal students, where she did her best to suppress her powers, as many mages in the story often do. She wasn't the most popular kid though, because weird things seemed to happen around her. Once she graduates from high school, Tabitha focuses on training herself until her mother dies. Tabitha wasn't as close with anyone like her mother, so she ends up grieving for a very long while. One morning, she gets the idea to combine a spirit summoning spell with a familiar summoning spell, since most raising the dead spells focus on reanimating the corpse rather than merging the body and spirit again, if that makes sense. Tabitha realizes a familiar would need a physical form, so she ends up making a very large ragdoll for her mother's spirit to possess. Using the necklace her mother always wore, she attempts to summon her mother from the dead into a ragdoll to bring her back to life, essentially, as her familiar. While the spell is overall successful, it was not her mother that she ends up summoning. This leads into my next character. But before we get into that, this is my final sheet for Tabitha. So my next character is who I refer to as my giant ragdoll son. His name is Lance Chevalier, and he was also the focus of my pork soda video. For consistency's sake, I decided to stick to the same reference sheet style as I did for Tabitha. And fun fact, if you've seen my traditional animation video, he is the subject of my traditional animation final. Overall, his sheet is very similar to Tabitha's, but Lance ended up having way more outfits and forms than Tabitha did. I chose to not do a turnaround for Lance as well, since his trench coat would also cover most of his back. On the subject of his name, I originally chose Lance because its original meaning comes from the word land, and he's generally a much more grounded character than Tabitha. The meeting spear also comes into play as it ties into the knight theme of his last name, Chevalier, as he and Tabitha kind of become knights of a sword, protecting others from all sorts of ghostly things. I also just really like the name Lance. I blame Pokemon. Lance is physically about 32 years old, and he's a ghost trapped in a ragdoll body. When he was alive, Lance was a biomedical engineer and a closeted gay man in the 1960s who generally kept himself. His boyfriend ends up being murdered in a seemingly random act of violence, with the police not seeming to care that much about the case. Lance, grieving and traumatized, ends up abandoning his biomedical engineering job and instead looked into paranormal investigation. Despite not being magical, Lance has always been a little more in touch with the supernatural than most people around him, despite his scientific background. He tries to bring his knowledge from his job into the paranormal field, and while he's well liked among his clients, he's really just trying to find his lost boyfriend. He knows that his spirit wouldn't pass on because of the randomness and violence of his boyfriend's death. Unfortunately, Lance never ends up finding his boyfriend, since Lance ends up being killed during one of his cases when he's about 32. Lance, as you can guess, doesn't take to being dead too well. He doesn't grow to be quite a vengeful spirit, but he does grow angry and negative at the circumstances surrounding his life and other people. He becomes much more pessimistic during this time, up to when Tabitha accidentally summons him. The necklace that Tabitha used to summon her mother was actually Lance's, which her mother picked up at a thrift store. Lance and Tabitha are both shocked, with Tabitha seeing a grown man in front of her instead of her mother, and Lance being pulled from the afterlife back into the physical world. He's frustrated with this for a while, especially since he's stuck as a familiar to a very loud and energetic teenager. However, he slowly warms up to Tabitha, and the two eventually form a sort of sibling bond. I really don't want to give too much more about these two than that, since I'm still working on the story for them, but I figured that this would be enough to understand my characters. For the rest of the sheet, as you saw with Tabitha, I chose to stick with my normal line art style, but I ditched the soft shading that I usually do. Instead, I opted for a cel shaded look, since I wanted the overall character look of the reference sheet to be simpler and focus of the design of the characters. I chose only to shade their main outfits, since they'll be seen more in those, and also because I'm lazy. I just write a quick couple of facts about them on the side of each sheet, since I have a whole separate document that lists everything about their identities. With Tabitha, her main outfits consisted of her regular witch outfit, and then her outfit that she wears when she's just lounging around her cottage. Lance's outfits consist of his familiar form, otherwise known as his summoned form, his familiar form without clothes so I can figure out generally where his markings go, him as a ghost, and then him when he was alive around the time he died. If you're wondering why I chose to do references of their hands, I'm somebody who's very bad at drawing hands, and I really wanted Tabitha and Lance's to look at least a little different. I wanted to make Tabitha's much more feminine and small because the main weapon she fights with is magic, and then I wanted Lance's to be a little more large and rugged because the weapon that he actually uses is a gun that he summons, a kind of spirit gun sort of thing. Probably should have drawn a reference with gun. Whoops. And this is my final character sheet for Lance. I hope you guys liked learning about my characters. I've been wanting to do more with them, and for me this is a step in fleshing them out more. I might do some little animations in the future with the two of them. If you like what you see, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!